He thought it was just a cave, but his life was never the same after entering. Marcus Thompson had been walking the Mojave Desert for over 20 years, guiding tourists through the natural beauties of Red Rock Canyon. That Thursday morning seemed like any other, but an unexpected discovery would change his life forever. It was almost noon when he spotted a faint light coming from inside Split Rock Cave. Marcus knew every inch of that place, every rock formation, every echo that reverberated off the stone walls. He had never seen any kind of light in there before. His first reaction was concern. Perhaps a tourist had gotten separated from the group, or worse yet, intruders were using the cave for illegal activities. Wearing his traditional blue work clothes, which protected him from the scorching Arizona desert sun, Marcus approached cautiously. His 45 years of experience in the desert had taught him to be careful with the unexpected. The thick, sturdy fabric of his clothing rustled against the dry wind as he walked across the soft sand covering the cave entrance. When he got closer, a strange sound reached his ears. It was a woman's voice, humming softly a melody he vaguely recognized. The music echoed off the stone walls, creating an almost mystical atmosphere in that arid environment. Marcus stopped for a few seconds, trying to identify the song, but his concern for safety spoke louder. With careful steps, he entered the cave. The temperature dropped considerably as he moved from the sunlight into the dim light of the rocky interior. His eyes took a few moments to adjust to the change, but soon he could identify the source of the light he had seen from afar. At the back of the cave, in an area he knew to be more spacious, there was a small campfire. Next to it, a woman with graying hair was sitting on a smooth rock, sewing what appeared to be a colorful piece of fabric. She wore simple but clean clothes, and her face, though marked by time, still retained traces of beauty. When the woman noticed his presence, she quickly looked up. Marcus was in shock. For a few seconds, neither of them said a word. He immediately recognized that face, even with the marks the years had left. "Sarah," he whispered, unable to believe what he was seeing. The woman stood up quickly, dropping her sewing on the ground. Her eyes filled with tears, and she brought her hands to her chest, as if trying to control a rapid breath. "Marcus, please don't tell anyone you saw me here," she pleaded, her voice trembling with fear and emotion. Marcus felt his legs weaken. Sarah Mitchell had disappeared from Sedona 8 years ago, leaving behind her husband, 2 young children, and an entire town in shock. There had been searches for weeks, investigations, speculations. Many believed she had run off with another man. Others feared something terrible had happened. No one would ever have imagined she was there, just a few miles from town, living alone in a cave. "Sarah, for God's sake, what are you doing here? Your family, your children. Everyone looked for you. Everyone suffered," said Marcus, still trying to process the situation. She moved closer to him but kept a safe distance. Marcus could see her face better. Sarah was thinner, her skin sunburned, but her eyes still had that special sparkle he remembered from when they were younger. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "I couldn't go back, Marcus." "Not after what I found out," she said, sitting back down on the rock. "Sit down, please. If you've already found me, at least let me explain." Marcus hesitated for a moment, but finally sat down on a smaller rock near the campfire. The heat from the flames was comforting in the chill of the cave. Sarah picked up her sewing from the ground and held it between her hands as if that object gave her the strength to keep talking. "Do you remember what my life was like before I disappeared?" she asked, without looking directly at Marcus. "Yes, I remember. You were married to David. You had those 2 beautiful boys, Jake and Ryan. You had that house near the church. You always seemed like a happy family," replied Marcus, watching every expression on Sarah's face. "We seemed that way," she said with a bitter smile. "On the outside, we were the perfect family. David had his construction supply business. I took care of the children and helped at the store. But there was something I didn't know, something I discovered at the worst possible moment." Sarah paused as if gathering courage to continue. Marcus noticed her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the fabric she was sewing. "On the eve of Jake's birthday, I went to my sister Jennifer's house to pick up the cake she had made. I arrived earlier than planned and—" Sarah's voice faltered. She took a deep breath before continuing. I found my husband and my sister in a situation I shouldn't have seen. It wasn't the first time, Marcus. From the conversation I overheard, they had been involved for over 2 years. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He knew both Sarah and David and Jennifer. He could never have imagined something like this was happening beneath the apparent family harmony. My God, Sarah, what did you do? I left without them seeing me. I went back home and pretended nothing had happened, but inside I was shattered. For days I tried to find a way to confront them, to decide what to do with my life and my children's. Sarah stood up and walked to a darker part of the cave. When she returned, she brought a water bottle and 2 simple aluminum cups. Would you like some water? She offered. Marcus accepted, more to buy time and understand the situation better than out of thirst. The water was cool and clean, which made him think about how Sarah had managed to survive there for so many years. Please, keep telling me what happened, he asked. 1 week after the discovery, I simply couldn't pretend anymore. I woke up that morning, looked at David sleeping beside me and felt a mix of disgust and despair. How could I keep living a lie? How could I look into my children's eyes, knowing they would soon find out their family was destroyed? But you could have confronted him, fought for your family, said Marcus. I thought about that 1,000 times, but the more I thought, the more I realized it wasn't just anger I felt. It was humiliation. How did I not notice anything for 2 years? How did the whole town probably know and I was the only one living in ignorance? And worse, how could I guarantee they would stop after being discovered? Sarah sat back down, but this time closer to Marcus. He could see tears forming in her eyes. That day I left home saying I was going shopping at the market. I only took a small backpack with a few clothes and a little money I had saved. I thought I'd only be gone a few days, that I needed time to think, to decide what to do. I walked aimlessly until I got here. And you ended up staying 8 years, Marcus completed, still trying to process the whole story. This cave has always been special to me. When we were teenagers, I used to come here with my friends to talk, to escape problems at home. I remembered there was a freshwater spring in the back and that the place was sheltered from the wind and rain. I thought it would be the perfect place to stay for a few days. Marcus looked around and realized that Sarah had completely transformed the interior of the cave. There were rustic furniture made of wood and stone, an organized area for cooking, shelves where she kept supplies and a few belongings. It looked like an improvised yet functional home. How did you manage all this? He asked, pointing to the furniture. At first it was hard. I survived only on what I had brought from home and some fruits I knew in the area. But after a few weeks, I discovered I could make crafts with the materials I found around here. I made bags, dish towels, decorative objects. And where did you sell them? There's a man named Henry who has a stall on the road that leads to Flagstaff. He sells souvenirs for tourists. He never asked questions about where I came from or why I always appeared alone. He just bought my products and paid me a fair price. With that money, I managed to buy the basic things I needed. Marcus was impressed by Sarah's ability to adapt, but at the same time he felt a deep sadness thinking about the suffering she must have endured all these years. Sarah, do you have any idea what your family went through? What your children went through? Sarah's face contorted in pain. She put her hands to her face and began to cry silently. I think about that every day, Marcus, every day. But the more time passed, the harder it became to return. How would I explain my disappearance? How could I look my children in the eyes after abandoning them? They must hate me. They don't hate you, Sarah. They miss you. Jake and Ryan grew up thinking their mother had died or been kidnapped. They never understood why you just vanished. Sarah lifted her face, her eyes red from crying. And David? What happened to him and Jennifer? Marcus hesitated before answering. He didn't know if he should tell the whole truth, but he realized Sarah deserved to know what had happened to her family during all those years. After you disappeared, David was desperate. He and Jennifer organized searches, contacted the police, put up posters all over town. Everyone believed they were worried about you. Did they stay together? Apparently yes, but discreetly. About 2 years after your disappearance, they publicly acknowledged the relationship. They said they had grown closer to console each other over the loss you represented. Many people found it strange, but there was no proof of anything. Sarah shook her head as if confirming her worst suspicions. And my children? They stayed with their paternal grandparents for the first few years. Jake and Ryan suffered a lot, especially the younger one. But later, David and Jennifer got married and the boys went to live with them. They got married? Asked Sarah, with a mixture of surprise and outrage. Yes, about 4 years ago. They even had a daughter together, a girl named Emily. Sarah stood up abruptly and walked toward the cave entrance. Marcus followed her, worried about her reaction. She leaned against one of the rocky walls and stared at the endless horizon of the desert. "So they got what they wanted," she said, her voice full of bitterness. "They used my disappearance to justify their relationship. They probably told everyone they found solace in each other after my loss." "Sarah, I know this must be very painful to hear, but you need to know that your children never stopped missing you. Jake is 16 now and Ryan is 14. They always ask about you. They always show hope that one day you'll return." Sarah turned to Marcus, and he could see she was fighting an intense internal battle. "How can I go back now, Marcus? How can I show up after 8 years and ruin the new family they've built? What if my children don't forgive me? What if they do forgive you?" Marcus countered. "You don't know what could happen if you don't try." Sarah went back inside the cave and sat down again near the campfire. Marcus followed her, sensing she needed time to process all the information she had just received. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" she said, after a few minutes of silence. "Of course." "Don't tell anyone you found me, at least not yet. I need time to think about all of this." Marcus felt conflicted. On one hand, he understood Sarah's request and felt compassion for all the suffering she had been through. On the other hand, he thought of her children and how much they deserved to know their mother was alive and well. "Sarah, I can't promise that. Your children deserve to know the truth. Please, Marcus, just a few weeks. Let me prepare myself psychologically for this decision. It's been a long time in isolation, in fear. I've developed a huge difficulty dealing with people. Some days I can't even leave this cave. I feel panic just thinking about running into someone I know." Marcus observed Sarah more closely and noticed signs he hadn't seen before. She had a nervous habit of fidgeting with her hands when talking about returning to the city, and her eyes showed anxiety whenever she mentioned meeting other people. "Are you afraid of going back?" he asked. "Very afraid. All these years I've created a routine, a controlled life. I know exactly what to do every day. I know every sound in this cave, every animal that passes by. The thought of going back to the outside world terrifies me." Marcus began to understand the situation was more complex than he had imagined. Sarah wasn't just hiding out of shame or anger. She had developed emotional problems that prevented her from returning to a normal life. "Sarah, have you ever thought that you might need help from someone who understands these anxiety problems?" "Yes, I have. But how can I seek help without revealing who I am and where I've been all these years?" Marcus grew thoughtful. He knew his sister, Linda, who was a retired nurse and had always been interested in mental health issues. Maybe she could help Sarah in some way. "Look, I have a sister who understands these things. She worked for many years at the hospital in Prescott and always dealt with people who had anxiety and depression problems. Maybe she could give you some guidance." "Would you tell her about me?" "Only if you allowed it. And she's a very discreet person. She would never tell anyone." Sarah was thoughtful for a few minutes. Marcus could see she was seriously considering the proposal. "I need to think about it," she finally said. "But thank you for not judging me, Marcus. Thank you for understanding it wasn't easy for me to be away from home all these years." Marcus felt a wave of emotion hearing Sarah's words. During all the years of her disappearance, he had kept a secret he had never told anyone. He had always been in love with her since they were teenagers. Seeing her married to David had been painful, but he respected her choice and never interfered. "Sarah, I need to tell you something," he said, hesitating. "What is it?" "I've always liked you. Since we were young. I never said anything because you were with David, but I've always wondered how it might have been if I'd had the courage to tell you before." Sarah looked at Marcus with surprise. For a few moments, neither of them said anything. "Marcus, I didn't know," she said softly. "You were always very kind to me, but I thought it was just friendship." "It was friendship too. But it was more than that. Watching you disappear was one of the hardest things I've ever been through. Not just out of concern, but because he felt he had lost the most special person he had ever known. Sarah approached Marcus and lightly touched his arm. Thank you for telling me this. At this point in my life, knowing someone cares about me so much gives me a strength I haven't felt in a long time. I want to help you, Sarah. I want you to heal from these fears and go back to your family, but I also want to be by your side during this process, if you'll allow it. Sarah smiled for the first time since Marcus had found her. It was a sad smile, but genuine. I would like that, Marcus. I really would. They sat in silence for a few minutes, just watching the flames of the campfire dance. Marcus felt he had just lived through one of the most intense moments of his life. I need to go now, he said, looking at the sky through the cave entrance. I have a group of tourists waiting for me, but I can come back tomorrow if you want. Please do come back, but be careful. I don't want anyone to suspect anything just yet. Don't worry. I know these paths better than anyone. I know how to get here without being seen. Marcus stood up and walked toward the cave exit. Before leaving, he turned to Sarah once more. Sarah, promise me one thing. Promise me you'll seriously think about getting help and going back to your children. They need you. I promise I'll think about it, Marcus. That's all I can promise for now. Marcus nodded to her and left the cave. The sun was even stronger now, and the contrast between the coolness of the rocky interior and the heat of the desert made him realize how Sarah lived in a reality completely different from the outside world. As he walked back to town, his mind was buzzing with thoughts. How could he help Sarah overcome her fears? How could he convince her that her children would forgive her? And how could he deal with his own feelings, which had been rekindled so intensely after so many years? When he reached the meeting point with his tourists, Marcus tried to focus on his work, but his mind was completely on Sarah. The visitors asked questions about the rock formations and the history of the region, but he answered mechanically, thinking only of the woman he had left alone in the cave. That night, Marcus could barely sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, planning how he could help Sarah. He thought about talking to his sister Linda about anxiety and trauma, without yet revealing who it was about. He also thought about how he could find out more information about the current situation of Sarah's children. The next day, Marcus kept his promise and returned to the cave. This time he brought some supplies, fresh fruit, bread, milk, and some basic medicines he thought Sarah might need. Good morning, he said, entering the cave. Good morning, Marcus. Thank you for coming back, replied Sarah, seeming calmer than the day before. I brought a few things for you, he said, showing the bag of supplies. You didn't have to, but thank you. Sit here. I made fresh coffee. Marcus settled on one of the rocks Sarah had arranged as a seat and accepted the cup of coffee she offered him. The aroma was comforting and the taste surprisingly good. How do you get coffee out here? He asked. Henry, that man from the stall who buys my crafts always brings me a few things when I ask. Coffee is one of the few luxuries I won't give up. Sarah, I talked to my sister yesterday, without mentioning your name. I asked about anxiety problems and how to help people who are afraid of returning to social life. Sarah seemed interested and a little apprehensive at the same time. And what did she say? She explained that it's normal to develop these fears after a strong emotional trauma. She said many people go through it and that treatment is available. But he also said the person needs to want to heal and be willing to face their fears gradually. Gradually how? Starting with small steps. For example, instead of thinking about going straight back to the city and facing everyone at once, you could start by leaving the cave for just a few hours or meeting with just one person at a time. Sarah was thoughtful as she drank her coffee. Do you think I could do that? I'm sure you could. You've survived alone here for 8 years, Sarah. That shows tremendous inner strength. You just need to redirect that strength to overcome your fears. Marcus, can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course. Several times over these years, I walked to the cave entrance determined to go back home. I would get to the road, see cars heading toward the city, but when it came time to signal for a driver to stop, I would just freeze. My heart would race, my hands would sweat. I felt like I was going to faint. Then I'd run back here. Marcus felt deep compassion hearing Sarah describe her panic attacks. Sarah, you're not alone in this. My sister said it's very common. The good news is it's treatable. Do you think your sister would agree to meet me, without knowing who I am at first? I'm sure she would. Linda has always helped people even after retiring. I can arrange a meeting somewhere private. Sarah seemed to seriously consider the proposal. Maybe that's a good idea. I need someone who understands these things to help me. Great. I'll talk to her today and arrange something for the next few days. They spent the rest of the morning talking about lighter subjects. Marcus told stories about the tourists he had guided over the years, and Sarah shared some of the adventures she had trying to adapt to life in the cave. Do you remember the first time it rained after I got here? Asked Sarah, laughing. I hadn't thought that water could come in through the cave entrance. I woke up soaked, with all my things wet. I had to improvise a wall with rocks and branches to protect the inside part. And how did you get food in the early days? Marcus wanted to know. Lots of wild fruit and spring water. I lost a lot of weight in the first few months. Then I started planting a few things in a protected area outside. Nothing too elaborate, but I managed to grow some basic herbs and greens. Marcus was impressed once again by Sarah's survival skills. You've turned into a true desert dweller, he commented. I had to. It was that or not survive. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When Marcus was getting ready to leave, Sarah held him by the arm. Marcus, I need to ask you something. How are my children? Physically? Emotionally? Are they happy? Marcus hesitated. It was a difficult question to answer, because it would require him to be very honest about the situation. Sarah, they're good boys. They study. They have friends. But I can see there's a sadness in them that was never healed. Especially in Ryan, the youngest. He was always more attached to you when he was little. Sarah was moved hearing about her sons. How are they physically? Have they grown a lot? Jake is a tall, handsome young man. He looks a lot like you. Has your eyes and your smile. Ryan has grown too, but he looks more like his father physically. Do they know about their father's relationship with Jennifer from the beginning? No. They found out little by little as they grew up. Initially, they thought their father and aunt had just gotten together to take care of them after your disappearance. But as they grew older, they began to understand there was something between them even before you left home. How did they react to that discovery? Jake was very angry when he understood the situation. He went through a rebellious phase, fought a lot with his father. Ryan became more closed off, more introspective. I think each dealt with the pain in their own way. Sarah began to cry silently. They must hate me for abandoning them in such a difficult situation. Sarah, they don't hate you. They miss you. It's different. Whenever someone mentions your name, both of them pay attention. Whenever a woman who looks like you passes on the street, they look with hope. How do you know all this? Sedona is a small town, Sarah. Everyone knows everyone, and I always paid attention to what happened with your family, precisely because I care about you. Sarah wiped her tears and took a deep breath. I think I'm ready to accept your sister's help. If she can teach me how to deal with these fears, maybe I can find the courage to see my sons again. That's good, Sarah. I'll talk to Linda today. Marcus left the cave that day feeling more hopeful. For the first time, Sarah had shown a real willingness to seek help and overcome her trauma. That afternoon, he went to his sister's house. Linda was a 60-year-old woman, her grey hair always neatly styled, with a maternal manner that made her sought out by people with all sorts of problems. Marcus, you've had a strange look on your face for 2 days. What's going on? She asked as soon as he entered the room. Linda, I need to talk to you about a delicate situation, and I need you to promise me total discretion. You can talk, brother. You know you can trust me. Marcus took a deep breath and decided to tell the whole truth. I found Sarah Mitchell. Linda almost dropped the coffee cup she was holding. What do you mean you found her? Where was she? She's been living in a cave nearby for 8 years. She ran away from home after discovering her husband was cheating on her with her own sister. Linda was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. Good heavens, poor Sarah. And how is she? Physically well, but emotionally shaken, she developed very strong anxiety that prevents her from returning to normal life. That's why I came to talk to you. Of course I'll help. When can I meet her? Would tomorrow be possible? In a discreet place? Yes. We can meet at that small chapel at the end of the road to Flagstaff. It's a quiet, isolated place. Perfect. I'll talk to her later today. The next day, Marcus took Sarah to the chapel. She was visibly nervous but determined to face her fear of meeting new people. Remember that Linda is here to help, not to judge, said Marcus as they walked. I know. I'm trying to control myself, but my heart is racing. That's normal. Take a deep breath and try to focus on the fact that this is an important step for your recovery. Linda was already waiting for them in the chapel, sitting on one of the wooden benches. When she saw Sarah, she stood up and walked toward her with a welcoming smile. Sarah, I can imagine how you must be feeling right now. I want you to know I'm here only to help you, without any judgment. Sarah seemed to calm down a little with Linda's kind words. Thank you for agreeing to meet me without really knowing me. Marcus told me your situation, and I'm impressed by your strength to survive alone all these years. It shows you have very powerful inner resources. The three of them sat on one of the chapel benches, and Linda began asking questions about how Sarah felt about the idea of returning to social life. Sarah, when you think about reuniting with your children, what are the first feelings that come to your mind? Fear. A lot of fear. Fear that they won't forgive me. Fear that they won't recognize me. Fear of ruining the new life they've built without me. And when you think about continuing to live in isolation? Sadness. A sadness that's getting heavier and heavier, especially now that Marcus has told me how my children are doing. Linda asked several other questions, always gently and non-invasively. Sarah began to feel more and more comfortable talking about her feelings. Sarah, from what you tell me, you didn't run away from your family because you didn't love them. You ran away because your heart was broken and you didn't know how to handle the situation. That's very different from abandonment. But the result was the same. I left my children without a mother. Yes, but intentions matter when it comes to family forgiveness. Your children will understand that you were suffering and that you didn't intend to hurt them. Marcus watched the conversation, impressed by his sister's skill in handling that delicate situation. Linda, do you think there's a way for Sarah to gradually reconnect with the family without causing too much of a shock? He asked. Yes, of course. We can create a gradual plan. Sarah, would you be willing to start by meeting just one person at a time? What do you mean? For example, first you could meet only your oldest son, or just your father, or whoever you feel would be most receptive. Then gradually include other family members. Sarah became thoughtful. I think it would be less scary that way. But how do I explain where I've been all these years? With the truth, said Linda firmly. The truth is always less complicated than lies, even when it's painful. Do you think my children will understand why I ran away? Sarah, your children are teenagers now. They have the capacity to understand complex issues like betrayal and emotional pain. And most importantly, they want their mother back. That I can guarantee. Sarah got emotional again. How can I be sure of that? Marcus decided to intervene. Sarah, what if I tried to talk discreetly with Jake, without revealing that you're alive, just to better understand his feelings about your absence? You would do that? Of course, the boy is 16 now. He's mature enough for a conversation like that. Linda thought the idea was interesting. That's a good suggestion. That way you can test the waters before exposing yourself. Sarah agreed to the plan. They arranged that Marcus would try to approach Jake in the coming days and that Linda would continue having informal therapy sessions with Sarah to help her overcome the anxiety. During the following days, Marcus looked for opportunities to talk with Jake. The young man had a habit of playing soccer with his friends on a court near the school every afternoon. Marcus decided to pass by there casually and strike up a conversation. Hey Jake, how's it going? He greeted when the game ended. Hi Mr. Marcus, I'm good, and you? Everything's great. You've grown so much, kid. You're almost a man now. Jake smiled shyly. Marcus had known the boy since he was little and knew he had always been more reserved. "Jake, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure. Do you still think about your mother a lot?" Jake's face completely changed. He looked at Marcus with surprise and a bit of suspicion. "Why do you want to know that?" "Sorry if it was invasive. It's just that I knew your mother well when we were younger. She was a very special person. I always wonder how you and your brother deal with her absence." Jake was silent for a few moments, as if deciding whether he could trust Marcus. "I think about her every day, Mr. Marcus. Every day. And the worst part is, everyone says she abandoned us. But I never believed that." "Why don't you believe it?" "Because I remember her, you know. I remember how she took care of us, how she loved us. A mother who loves her kids like she loved us doesn't just abandon them out of nowhere." Marcus felt his heart tighten at the boy's words. "And what do you think might have happened to her?" "I don't know. Sometimes I think something bad happened, and she couldn't come back. Other times I think she found out something that made her feel really bad and had to leave so she wouldn't suffer anymore." Marcus was impressed by Jake's maturity and intuition. "And if one day you found out she was alive and well, how would you feel?" "It would be the best news of my life. Even if she had her reasons for leaving, I'd just want to hug her again and say I've forgiven her." Marcus had to control himself to not get emotional right then. "And your brother Ryan? How does he feel?" "Ryan suffers more than I do, because he was younger when she left. He doesn't even have many memories of her. Sometimes he looks at old photos and asks what she was like, what her voice sounded like." "Do you two talk about her between yourselves?" "Sometimes. Mostly when my dad and my Aunt Jennifer aren't around. They get uncomfortable when we talk about my mom." "Are you and your brother happy living with them?" Jake hesitated before answering. "My dad takes care of us, puts food on the table, pays for school. Aunt Jennifer is nice to us too, but it's not the same, you know. Something's missing. And after Emily was born, sometimes I feel like we're just a memory from the past they'd rather forget." Marcus felt his heart tighten hearing that statement. "Jake, thank you for talking to me about this, and know that your mom really was a very special person." "Mr. Marcus, why are you asking about her? Did something happen?" Marcus had to improvise quickly. "No, nothing specific happened. It's just that I've been thinking a lot about people from the past lately. Life goes by and sometimes we forget to appreciate the important people we've met." Jake seemed to accept the explanation, but Marcus noticed the boy was more observant than he'd imagined. That night, Marcus met Sarah and Linda in the cave to report the conversation with Jake. "Sarah, you need to hear what your son said about you," he said, moved. Marcus recounted the entire conversation, from Jake's unwavering declaration of love to his suspicions about the true reasons for his mother's disappearance. Sarah cried profusely as she listened. "He really said he would forgive me?" she asked through tears. "He did. And he said hugging you again would be the best news of his life." Linda, who had also been moved by the account, took the moment to take the next step in the therapy. "Sarah, are you hearing this? Your oldest son is ready to welcome you back. He even suspects you had serious reasons for leaving. But what if when he sees me for real he can't forgive me? What if it's different in practice?" "It's a risk you'll have to take," said Linda, gently but firmly. "There are no guarantees in human relationships, but there is love, and true love usually overcomes hurts." Sarah stayed silent for a few minutes, processing everything she had heard. "Linda, do you think I'm ready to meet my son again?" "I think you'll never feel completely ready, but I think you have enough strength to take this step." "Marcus, could you arrange a meeting?" "Of course, Sarah. Where would you like it to be?" "Near the cave. Somewhere I feel safe but where he can easily get to. How about that clearing about 500 meters from here? There are some trees that provide shade, and it's a beautiful, peaceful spot. It would be perfect." Linda suggested that Marcus prepare Jake gradually for the meeting, without revealing exactly what it was about. "You can tell him you have an important surprise for him, related to his mother. That way he comes emotionally prepared, but without specific expectations." Marcus agreed with the strategy and arranged to organize the meeting for the afternoon of the next day. On the morning of the meeting, Sarah was extremely nervous. Linda had spent the night in the cave with her, helping her prepare psychologically. "Sarah, remember that you are his mother. No matter how much time has passed, you have a connection that goes beyond circumstances," said Linda. "What if he's angry with me?" "If he is, it's normal. Let him express that anger, then explain your reasons. Honest communication heals emotional wounds." Marcus arrived at the cave early in the afternoon. "Did Jake agree to come?" asked Sarah anxiously. "He did. He said he's curious and a little apprehensive, but that he trusts me. He'll be at the clearing in an hour." Sarah bathed in the freshwater spring at the back of the cave and put on her best clothes. Linda helped her fix her hair and calm down. "You look beautiful, Sarah. You're ready for this," said Linda. "Let's go then," said Marcus. The three walked to the clearing. Sarah was trembling with nerves, but determined to go through with it. Linda and Marcus positioned themselves at a respectful distance, ready to intervene if necessary. A few minutes later, Jake appeared walking down the trail. When he saw Marcus, he waved and approached. "Hey, Marcus, what's the surprise?" Marcus pointed toward the trees where Sarah was standing, partially hidden by the shade. "Jake, I want you to emotionally prepare yourself for what you're about to see now, okay?" The young man was confused, but nodded affirmatively. "Behind that tree is someone you know and who has missed you very much." Jake looked in the indicated direction, but still couldn't see Sarah clearly. "Who is it?" Marcus gave a signal to Sarah, who took a deep breath and took a few steps forward, moving out of the shadow into the sunlight. When Jake saw Sarah's face, he literally froze for a few seconds. His eyes widened and his mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Mom," he whispered, as if he didn't believe what he was seeing. "Hi, my son," said Sarah, her voice choked with emotion. Jake stood still for a few more seconds, as if processing that impossible reality. Then he began to walk slowly toward his mother. "Mom, is it really you? Are you alive? Are you here?" "Yes, my love. I am here." When he got close to her, Jake looked her up and down as if making sure it wasn't a dream. "You look different, thinner, older, but it's really you." "It's me, Jake, your mother." The young man then threw himself into Sarah's arms and began to cry as he hadn't cried since he was a child. She hugged him tightly, also in tears. "Mom, where were you? Why didn't you come home? I missed you so much." "I know, my son. I missed you so much too. You and Ryan." They held each other for several minutes, crying and reconnecting. Marcus and Linda watched from a distance, also moved. When they finally separated, Jake held Sarah's face in his hands. "Mom, why did you leave?" Sarah took a deep breath, preparing for the most difficult conversation of her life. "Jake, I'm going to tell you the truth, but it's a painful truth. Are you ready to hear it?" "I am. I've grown up, Mom. I can understand adult things. I found out your father was cheating on me with Aunt Jennifer. They had been involved for a long time in secret. When I found out, I was so shattered I couldn't face the situation. I ran away because my heart was broken and I didn't know how to deal with it." Jake was silent for a few moments, processing the information. "I kind of figured it was something like that," he finally said. "What do you mean?" "Mom, as I was growing up, I started to notice things, the way they looked at each other, how they acted when they thought no one was watching. And I started to suspect that maybe they were already together before you left." Sarah was surprised by her son's maturity. "And how do you feel knowing that?" "Sad, but not surprised, and mostly relieved to know you didn't leave us because you didn't love us. That's what hurt the most, thinking you had gone because you didn't want to be our mom anymore." "Never, Jake. I never stopped wanting to be your mom, not for a single day." "Then why didn't you come back sooner?" Sarah hesitated. "How do you explain 8 years of fear and anxiety to a teenager?" "Because I developed a great fear of facing people, of explaining where I had been, of finding out if you would still love me. The more time passed, the harder it became to come back." "Mom, I never stopped loving you. Not for a second." The two hugged again, and Sarah felt that a part of the weight she had carried for years was being lifted. "Jake, Can you forgive me for being away all these years? I already have, Mum. The moment I saw your face, I forgave everything. And Ryan, how will he react when he finds out I'm alive? He's going to be over the moon with happiness. He always said he felt you were alive, even when everyone said otherwise. Do you think he can forgive me too? I'm sure he can. Mum, we never stopped hoping you'd come back. Sarah was moved again hearing that. Jake, I need to tell you where I've been all these years. She told him about the cave, about how she had learned to survive on her own, about the crafts she sold to support herself. Jake listened to everything with attention and admiration. Mom, you are so strong. I didn't know you could do all those things. Necessity teaches you a lot, my son. And now? Are you going to come home? I want to come back very much, but I don't know how. I don't know how to explain to everyone where I've been, how to face your father and Jennifer, how to resume my life. Mom, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you're alive and you want to come back. We'll figure out the rest together. Jake's maturity impressed Sarah. The boy she had left at 8 years old was now a sensible and understanding young man. Jake, can you help me reconnect with Ryan gradually, without scaring him? Of course, Mom. I'll prepare him. I'll tell him you're alive and that you want to see him. What if he gets angry with me? He won't, Mom. You can trust me. Marcus and Linda approached discreetly. How are you two doing? Asked Linda. Better than I ever imagined possible, replied Sarah. Jake, what did you think of reuniting with your mother? Asked Marcus. It's the happiest day of my life, Mr. Marcus. Thank you for arranging this. My pleasure, son. Linda talked a bit with Jake about the importance of supporting Sarah in the process of returning to normal life. Your mother went through emotional traumas that left her afraid of returning to social life. She's going to need a lot of love and patience from the family to heal completely. Don't worry, Ryan and I will take care of her. Marcus suggested that Jake go back home and prepare Ryan for the reunion without telling anyone else about Sarah until she was ready. Can it be our secret for a few days? Asked Sarah. Of course, Mom. But don't take too long to come back for good. We need you at home. Jake said goodbye to his mother with a long, tight hug. Mom, promise you won't disappear again. I promise, my son. Never again. After Jake left, Sarah sat on one of the rocks in the clearing, visibly more at ease. How do you feel? Asked Linda. Lighter, as if an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Jake welcomed me better than I dared to dream. And now do you feel more confident about reuniting with Ryan? Yes. If Jake forgave me, I believe Ryan will forgive me too. Marcus was observing Sarah and noticed a significant change in her posture and expression. Sarah, you seem like a different person after this meeting. I do feel different. I feel like maybe it's possible to rebuild my life. Linda suggested they spend a few more days planning how the reunion with Ryan would be and how Sarah would return to the city for good. Sarah, do you feel ready to leave the cave and go back to living in a house? She asked. It still scares me a little, but I think so, especially if my children are with me. And how do you want the process to be? Do you want to go straight home or prefer an adjustment period? I think I prefer an adjustment period, maybe staying first at the house of a relative or close friend. Marcus had an idea. Sarah, you can stay at my house while you adjust. I have an extra room and I live right near your old house. That way you can gradually get used to life in the city. You would do that? Of course. And my sister can continue helping you with the emotional issues. That would be perfect. Thank you, Marcus. In the following days, Jake prepared Ryan for the reunion with their mother. The boy initially didn't believe the news. Jake, stop joking with me like that, said Ryan, thinking his brother was making up a story. Ryan, I'm serious. Mom is alive and wants to see you. But where has she been all these years? She'll explain everything when you meet. Do you want to see her? Ryan was silent for a few minutes, as if processing the information. Of course I do. But what if she leaves again? She promised she won't, and now it's the two of us to make sure she stays. When can I see her? Tomorrow, if you want. Ryan barely slept that night, anxious to reunite with the mother he barely remembered. The next afternoon, Jake took him to the clearing where Sarah was waiting. When Ryan saw Sarah, his reaction was different from Jake's. He stood still, observing her with curiosity and a bit of shyness. "Ryan, is that really you?" said Sarah, moved to see how her younger son had grown. "Are you really my mum?" he asked, still hesitant. "Yes, I am, my love." Ryan slowly approached and stood in front of Sarah, studying her face. "You look like the photos I keep looking at home," he said. "And you've grown so much, my son. You're a fine young man." "Mum, why did you leave?" Sarah repeated to Ryan the same explanation she had given to Jake, adapting the language for the boy's age. "And why didn't you come back sooner?" "Because I was afraid, Ryan. Afraid that you wouldn't forgive me." "But I was never mad at you, Mum. I just missed you." Ryan's simple and sincere words touched Sarah deeply. "Do you forgive me for being away?" "I forgive you. But promise you'll stay now?" "I promise, my son." Ryan then approached and hugged Sarah. It was a different hug from Jake's, more delicate and cautious, but equally moving. "Mum, can you come home today?" "Not yet, Ryan. I need a few days to get organized, but very soon I'll be home with you." "And what about Dad and Aunt Jennifer? Do they know you're alive?" "Not yet. For now it's our secret, okay?" "Okay. But will they be happy when they find out?" Sarah didn't know how to answer that question. How do you explain to a 14-year-old boy the complexities of an adult relationship destroyed by betrayal? "Ryan, your father and Aunt Jennifer might be a little surprised, but the important thing is that you both welcome me back." "We'll always be on your side, Mum," said Jake. "Always," confirmed Ryan. After reuniting with her two sons, Sarah felt strong enough to take the next step, leave the cave and move into Marcus's house. "Linda, do you think I'm ready?" she asked. "I think so. You've already proven to yourself that you can face your fears and that your sons love you unconditionally." The move was done discreetly. Marcus and Linda helped Sarah take her few belongings to his house. It felt strange for her to be within four walls again, sleeping in a bed, showering in a normal bathroom. "How do you feel?" asked Marcus on the first morning. "Strange, but good. It's like I'm relearning how to be a normal person." During the first days at Marcus's house, Sarah received daily visits from Jake and Ryan. They would have lunch together, talk about the lost years, plan for the future. "Mum, when are you going to tell Dad you're alive?" asked Jake during one of these visits. "Soon, I'm trying to gather the courage. Do you want me to tell him?" offered Ryan. "No, my son. That's a conversation I need to have with him in person." "And then, will you two live together again?" asked Jake. Sarah hesitated. It was a question she didn't have an answer for. "I don't know, Jake. A lot has changed in 8 years. I don't know if that would be possible or even desirable. But what if he apologized?" "Jake, betrayal isn't something that's fixed just with apologies. It's something that breaks trust very deeply." "So you'll never forgive him?" "Forgiving and returning to a relationship are different things. I can forgive him for my own peace of mind, but that doesn't mean I want to go back to living with him." The boys seemed to understand, even if they didn't completely like the answer. "And where are you going to live when you leave your Marcus's house?" Ryan wanted to know. "I don't know yet. Maybe I'll rent a small house where you can stay with me a few days a week." "We'd like that," said Jake. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Meanwhile, Marcus watched Sarah's transformation with growing admiration and affection. Seeing her regain confidence, laugh with her sons, make plans for the future, rekindled feelings in him that he had tried to bury for years. "Sarah, can I ask you a personal question?" he said one night as they were talking on the porch. "Of course." "Have you thought about having a new relationship, after you settle down and sort everything out with your family?" Sarah looked at Marcus with a gaze that mixed affection and hesitation. "Marcus, are you asking that in general, or are you referring to the two of us?" "I think I'm referring to the two of us," he replied courageously. "Marcus, you are a wonderful person. You saved me, literally and figuratively. But I'm still in the process of rebuilding my life. I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to think about romance right now." "I understand. And I don't want to pressure you. I just want you to know my feelings are true, and that, when you feel ready, I'll be here. Sarah touched Marcus's hand affectionately. Thank you for giving me time, and thank you for being so patient and understanding. A week after living in Marcus's house, Sarah decided it was time to face David. She asked Jake to arrange a meeting on neutral ground. "Mum, are you sure you're ready for this?" asked Jake. "I am. I can't put it off forever. He deserves to know I'm alive, and I need to clear some things up with him." "Where are you meeting?" "At the central square, on a bench near the church. It's a public place, but quiet." Jake arranged everything discreetly. He told his father he had important news and set the meeting for late afternoon. David arrived at the square promptly, visibly curious about what his son had to say. "So, Jake, what's the news?" "Dad, you need to sit down before I speak." David sat on the bench, beginning to get worried by his son's seriousness. "Did something happen?" "Not exactly that something happened. Actually, I discovered something. I found out where our mother is." David turned pale. "What do you mean, where she is? Is she alive?" "Yes, she is, Dad, and she wants to talk to you." At that moment, Sarah stepped out from behind the church where she had been waiting and walked slowly toward the two. When David saw Sarah, he was literally speechless. His eyes widened and he stood up from the bench so abruptly he almost lost his balance. "Sarah, is it really you?" "It's me, David." They stood facing each other for several seconds, unsure how to react. Jake watched everything intently. "My God, Sarah. Where were you? All these years? Everyone thought you had... How are you alive? How did you get here?" "Sit down, David. I'll explain everything." The three sat on the bench, and Sarah told the simplified version of the story. That she had discovered the betrayal, been emotionally shattered, and run away not knowing how to deal with the situation. David listened to everything in silence, his face going through various expressions: shock, guilt, sadness, relief. "Sarah, I don't know what to say. I don't know where to begin to ask for your forgiveness." "I didn't come here to hear apologies, David. I came to clarify the situation and define how we will proceed regarding the boys." "What do you mean, proceed?" "The boys know the truth about why I left. They've forgiven me and want me to be part of their lives again. I need to know if you will cooperate or create difficulties." David became thoughtful. "Sarah, you have every right to come back. They are your sons as much as mine." "And Jennifer? How will she react to my return?" David hesitated before answering. Jennifer will have to understand she can't stop you from being with your own children." "David, I want to make it clear that I didn't come to destroy the life you've built. I came to recover my relationship with my sons. As for the two of us, I think it's best we leave the past in the past." "Sarah, don't you even want to try?" "No, David, I don't. Some things can't be fixed." Jake had remained silent throughout the conversation, but at this moment he decided to intervene. "Dad, Mom is going to rent a house nearby. Ryan and I want to spend a few days a week with her. Do you allow it?" "Of course I do. You have the right to spend time with your mother." Sarah was relieved by David's cooperative reaction. "Thank you for understanding, David. It will be better for everyone if we can handle this situation maturely." "Sarah, can I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." "Can you forgive me? Not for us to get back together, but so we can have a civilized relationship for the boys' sake." Sarah thought for a few moments before answering. "I can forgive, David. I already have, actually. The resentment only hurt me, but forgiving doesn't erase what happened." "I understand, and I want you to know I deeply regret what I did. Not just the betrayal, but for creating a situation that made you feel you needed to run away. Thank you for acknowledging that." They talked for a few more minutes about practical matters, how to organize the boys' time with both parents, how to explain the situation to Jennifer and the young daughter, how to handle the town's curiosity about Sarah's return. "One thing at a time," said Sarah. "What's important now is that the boys know they can count on me." When Sarah returned to Marcus's house that night, she seemed lighter and more determined. "How did it go?" he asked. Better than I expected. David was mature and cooperative. I think we managed to establish a basis for a civilized arrangement. And how do you feel? Relieved. I feel like I've closed an important chapter. Now I can focus on rebuilding my relationship with my children and planning my future. And does that future include staying in Sedona? Yes, it does. This is my town. My children are here. My roots are here. I don't want to run away anymore. Marcus smiled when he heard that. I'm glad to know you're staying. In the following days, Sarah began looking for a house to rent. With Marcus's help, she found a small but cozy house just a few blocks from the home she had shared with David before her disappearance. It's perfect, she said upon seeing the house. Small enough for me to manage on my own, but with enough space for the boys to stay with me. And the money for the rent? Asked Marcus, concerned. I'm going to start doing crafts again, but now more professionally. During those years in the cave, I developed techniques I can use to create more elaborate products. Can I help you set up a small workshop? Yes, you can. Thank you, Marcus. Moving into her own home was an important step in Sarah's recovery. She felt like the owner of her own space again, capable of making decisions and choices. Jake and Ryan began spending afternoons at their mother's house. It was a period of readjustment for everyone. The boys needed to relearn how to have a present mother, and Sarah needed to relearn how to be a mother to teenagers. Mom, can you teach me how to do that embroidery you learned in the cave? Asked Ryan one of those afternoons. Of course I can, son. It would be my pleasure. Jake preferred to help Sarah organize the house and set up the small workshop. Mom, you're very talented, he said, admiring some of the pieces Sarah had brought from the cave. Thank you, sweetheart. Necessity taught me a lot. Gradually, Sarah's life settled into a new routine. She woke up early, had coffee, worked on her crafts in the morning, had lunch with her children, rested a bit in the afternoon, and dedicated the late part of the day to family time. Marcus continued to be a constant and comforting presence in her life. He helped her with practical matters, but respected the space she had asked for regarding romantic involvement. Marcus, I need to tell you something, Sarah said during one of his visits. What is it? You've been fundamental in my recovery. I don't know how I would have managed to get through all of this without your help. You're stronger than you think, Sarah. I just gave you a nudge. No, it was more than that. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Marcus was moved by Sarah's words. And now? How do you feel about the future? Hopeful. For the first time in many years, I feel hopeful. And about us? He asked cautiously. Sarah looked at Marcus with affection. Marcus, I need more time. I'm still rebuilding myself as a person, but I want you to know that you are very important to me. I can wait, Sarah. I can wait as long as necessary. One day, about 2 months after Sarah's return, Jennifer decided to look for her. She knocked on her door one afternoon when she knew the boys weren't there. Hi, Sarah, she said, visibly uncomfortable. Hi, Jennifer. Come in. The two sat in the small but cozy living room that Sarah had decorated with her own handmade creations. Sarah, I came here to talk to you about our situation. What do you want to talk about, Jennifer? I want to apologize for what we did, for how we did it. It wasn't right. Sarah watched her former sister-in-law carefully. Jennifer seemed genuinely remorseful. Jennifer, thank you for coming to talk to me in person. That takes courage. Sarah, I never wanted things to happen the way they did. The relationship with David started without either of us planning it, and when we realized what was happening, it was already very hard to stop. Why didn't you stop then? Because we fell in love, Sarah. I know that doesn't justify anything, but it's the truth. Sarah was silent for a few moments. Jennifer, I've already forgiven you both. Not for your sake, but for mine. The resentment was destroying me. And you can really forgive? I can, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or pretending nothing happened. I understand. Sarah, you can rest assured that I will never cause problems for you being with your children. They love you very much and deserve to have their mother back. Thank you for saying that, Jennifer. And I also want you to know that David never stopped feeling guilty about what happened. He always wondered if you were okay, if you were alive. Jennifer, you can both be at peace. I didn't come to ruin your lives. I came to rebuild mine. Thank you for understanding, Sarah. And if you need anything, you can count on me. After Jennifer left, Sarah felt even more at peace. Having resolved that issue too, left her free to focus completely on her future. That evening, when Marcus came to visit her, she was noticeably calmer. "How did the conversation with Jennifer go?" he asked. "Good. We managed to sort things out. I think now I can really move forward." "And what does moving forward mean for you?" "It means living in the present without being stuck in the past. It means enjoying each day with my children. It means building a new life different from the one I had before." "And does it mean giving love another chance?" Sarah smiled at Marcus. Perhaps it means that too." Marcus moved closer to her and held her hands. "Sarah, I love you. Not just for what you represent from the past, but for who you are today, for your strength, your courage, your ability to forgive. Marcus, I'm falling in love with you too, for saving me, for believing in me, for giving me the time and space to heal. Does that mean we can try?" "It means we can try. Slowly, respecting my process, but we can try." Marcus kissed Sarah gently. It was a kiss full of affection, respect, and hope. 6 months later, Sarah and Marcus were officially dating. Jake and Ryan completely approved of the relationship. "Mom, Marcus makes you happy," Ryan observed during one of his visits. "He does, my son, and you two do as well." "We really like him," said Jake. "He always looked after us even when you weren't here." "He really is a very special person," Sarah agreed. By this time, Sarah had established herself as a respected artisan in the city. Her products were sought after by tourists and locals alike. She had found not only a way to support herself, but also a source of personal satisfaction. "Sarah, have you thought about expanding your business?" Marcus suggested during one of their conversations about the future. "Expand how?" "Teaching other women the techniques you've developed, creating a cooperative of artisans." Sarah was interested in the idea. "It would be a way to help other people and at the same time grow professionally." "Exactly. And you have the knowledge and experience for it." The idea for the cooperative developed quickly. Sarah began by giving informal classes to some interested neighbors. She soon discovered there were several women in town who wanted to learn crafts, both for pleasure and out of economic necessity. "Marcus, I think I've found my purpose," she said emotionally after the first official class. "What is it?" "Teaching others how to turn difficulties into opportunities, just as I learned to turn my isolation into knowledge." The cooperative grew and became a small social enterprise. Sarah discovered she had a knack for teaching and leading. Her experiences in the cave, which initially seemed like just the consequences of a desperate escape, transformed into valuable knowledge she could share. 1 year after her return, Sarah was completely settled in her new life. She had a loving and respectful relationship with Marcus, a harmonious coexistence with the children, work that fulfilled her, and a respected position in the community. "Mom, do you regret anything?" asked Jake during one of their deeper conversations. Sarah thought carefully before answering. "I regret having been away from you for so long, but I don't regret discovering my inner strength. And I don't regret the lessons I learned." "What lessons?" "That it's possible to start over. That forgiveness frees the one who forgives more than the one who is forgiven. That true love overcomes any difficulty, and that sometimes we need to get lost to find ourselves." Ryan, who was listening to the conversation, made an observation that surprised Sarah. "Mom, I think everything happened the way it was supposed to." "Why do you think that?" "Because if you hadn't left, you never would have learned to be strong on your own. And if you hadn't learned that, maybe you wouldn't be able to be the amazing mother you are today." Sarah was moved by the maturity of her youngest son. "Ryan, you help me see things from a more positive perspective." "It's just that I think about things a lot, Mom. And I think that sometimes what seems bad at first can turn into something good in the end." 2 years after Sarah's return, the city of Sedona was organizing a regional craft fair. Sarah was invited to be one of the event coordinators. Marcus, can you believe I'm coordinating a fair in the same city I fled from in secret a few years ago? She commented, laughing. Yes, I believe it, and I think you deserve this recognition. Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life, a life I never imagined was possible. You're living the life you built with your own strength, Sarah. None of this happened by chance. The fair was a success. Sarah coordinated not only the craft section, but also created a special program on overcoming and starting over that attracted people from various towns in the region. Mom, you've become famous, joked Jake when he saw Sarah being interviewed by a local newspaper. Not famous, my son, just someone who found a purpose. During the fair, Sarah met several women who had been through difficult situations similar to hers: betrayals, abandonment, loss. Many of them drew inspiration from her story to find the strength to start over. Sarah, your story gave me hope, said one of these women. If you manage to come out of a cave and rebuild your life, I can overcome my problems too. Yes, you can, Sarah replied. The important thing is to believe it's always possible to start again. 3 years after her return, Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone. She decided to write a book telling her story. A book? Asked Marcus, surprised. Yes, I think my experience can help other people going through similar situations. And will you tell everything, even about the cave? I will tell everything, the complete truth. I think people deserve to know that it's possible to survive the worst moments in life. The book would be called From the Cave to the Light, A Journey Back Home. Sarah wrote for 6 months, with Marcus's help to review and organize the texts. Mum, isn't it strange to tell our story to the whole world? Asked Ryan when he learned about the project. At first I thought it was my son, but then I realized our story could help many families going through similar problems. And will we appear in the book? You will appear, but in a respectful way. I want to show how the love between a mother and her children can overcome any distance or difficulty. Jake and Ryan fully supported the book project. Mum, we're proud of you, said Jake. You turned a sad story into a story of hope. When the book was published, it had a greater impact than Sarah had imagined. She started receiving invitations to give talks in other cities about personal overcoming and family rebuilding. Marcus, I think our life is going to change again, she said after the 3rd speaking invitation. For better or worse? For better, but different, more focused on helping other people. And do you feel ready for that? I do. Now I know who I am and what I want to do with my life. Marcus looked at Sarah with admiration. The fragile and frightened woman he had found in the cave had transformed into a confident, determined, and generous person. Sarah, can I ask you a question? Of course. Would you marry me? Sarah was surprised by the proposal. Marcus, are you sure you want to marry me? My life is complicated. I have 2 teenage sons, a traumatic past. Sarah, I want to marry exactly this complex and amazing person you are. With your strength, your children, your story, your dreams. Sarah was deeply moved. Marcus, you saved me in so many ways I can't even count. Of course I'll marry you. The wedding was simple but moving. Jake and Ryan participated in the ceremony as groomsmen. Linda was Sarah's matron of honor, and even David and Jennifer attended, showing that the family wounds had truly healed. Mom, you look beautiful, said Ryan when he saw Sarah in her wedding dress. Thank you, my son, and thank you for always supporting my happiness. We just want you to be happy, Mom, said Jake. And Marcus makes you happy. He does. Very happy. The ceremony took place in the same church near where Sarah had met with David to clarify her situation. It was as if the location symbolized a cycle closing in a positive way. During the celebration, Sarah gave a speech that moved everyone present. A few years ago, I was completely lost. I thought I could never be happy again, that I didn't deserve to be loved anymore, that I had forever lost the most important things in my life. Today I am here, surrounded by people I love and who love me, celebrating not only my marriage, but my second chance at happiness. I want to especially thank my sons, Jake and Ryan, who forgave me and welcomed me back with unconditional love. You are the reason I found the strength to come out of the darkness. I want to thank Marcus, who not only found me when I was lost, but helped me find myself. You taught me that it's possible to love again after having your heart broken. And I want to thank Linda, who taught me that healing the wounds of the soul is possible when we have support and determination. But most of all, I want to say to all the people here, never give up on yourselves. Even in the darkest moments, there is always a light waiting to be found. The applause was long, and many of those present were visibly emotional. After the wedding, Sarah and Marcus moved into a larger house, where Jake and Ryan had their own rooms and could spend as many days as they wanted with their mother and stepfather. Now we are a complete family, Ryan observed one of the first nights in the new house. We really are, Sarah agreed, a family formed through love and forgiveness. The women's cooperative continued to grow and became a reference in the region. Sarah had found a way to transform her personal experience into a benefit for the entire community. Marcus, can you believe we have 15 women working in the cooperative now? Sarah commented one of those evenings. I do believe it, and they all have found not only a source of income, but also a way to value themselves. It's incredible how things connect. My time in the cave, which seemed like a waste, became the foundation for helping so many people. 5 years after Sarah's return, Jake was graduating from high school, and Ryan was about to enter college. The family had found a harmony that seemed unlikely on that first day in the cave. Mom, can I say something? Jake said during a family dinner. Of course, my son. I will always remember the day you came back. It was the day I learned that a mother's love is indestructible. Jake, you're going to make me cry. It's true, Mom. You proved that neither time nor distance can break the bond between a mother and her children. Ryan completed his brother's thought. And you also taught us that it's possible to forgive and start over. That will help me for the rest of my life. Sarah looked at her sons, at Marcus, and felt immense gratitude for the path her life had taken. You know something? She said. I could hardly believe it would be possible to be happy again after everything that happened, but you proved to me that love always finds a way to heal wounds. Marcus held Sarah's hand under the table. Sarah, what is your greatest wish for the future? To continue helping people find the strength to start over, and to see my children build their own happy families. And personally? Personally, I just want to continue being grateful for every day by the side of you three. That night, after the boys went to sleep, Sarah and Marcus went out for a walk through the streets of Sedona. It was a starry night, and the town was quiet. Marcus, sometimes I still can't believe this is my life, said Sarah, looking at the sky. Why? Because a few years ago I was in a cave, thinking I would never be happy again. And today, I have a family, work that I love, a clear purpose. And what do you think changed? I changed. I learned to believe that I deserved to be happy. I learned to forgive, including myself, and I learned that true love always finds a way. Sarah, do you remember the first question you asked me when we met again in the cave? I remember. I asked you not to tell anyone you had found me. And today you would be willing to tell your story to the whole world. It's true. What a transformation, isn't it? A beautiful transformation. From a woman hiding in a cave to a woman illuminating the lives of dozens of people. Sarah stopped walking and kissed Marcus tenderly. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. They returned home holding hands, planning the future and grateful for the present they had built together. 6 years after Sarah's return, the cooperative had expanded and included not only crafts, but also social programs for women in vulnerable situations. Sarah had become a regional reference in social entrepreneurship. Mom, you've become a businesswoman, Jake joked when he visited the cooperative's new space. Not just any businesswoman, my son, a social purpose entrepreneur. And what comes next? I'm thinking of creating a support center for women who have experienced emotional trauma, a place where they can take temporary refuge like I did in the cave, but with psychological and professional support. Would it be like a shelter? More than a shelter. It would be a restart center, a place where shattered women can rebuild themselves. The idea for the Restart Center developed quickly. Sarah secured partnerships with psychologists, social workers, and other professionals from the region. The first space was inaugurated 2 years later, in an adapted house on the outskirts of Sedona. Marcus, do you believe we're inaugurating a center that was born from my experience in the cave? Sarah said on opening day. I do believe it. You transformed your pain into a tool for healing others. It's what I'm most proud of in my life, having managed to turn something destructive into something constructive. The center served dozens of women in its first years, each with her own particular story, but all sharing the need for time and support to rebuild. Sarah, your story gave me hope, said one of the center's first beneficiaries. If you manage to come out of a cave and rebuild your life, I can overcome my situation too. Yes, you can. And you are not alone on this journey. 8 years after her return, Sarah was invited to give a lecture at a national conference on social entrepreneurship in New York. It was the first time she would leave the region since her return from the cave. Marcus, I'm nervous, she confessed before the trip. Why? Because I'm going to talk to hundreds of people who don't know me about my personal experience. Sarah, you've talked about this dozens of times. Why would it be different now? Because it's a larger, more diverse audience, and because it will be recorded and broadcast nationally. That means your message could reach thousands of people who need to hear that it's possible to start over. Sarah took a deep breath and agreed. You're right. It's an opportunity to help even more people. The lecture in New York was an absolute success. Sarah spoke for an hour about her journey from the cave to rebuilding, emphasizing the importance of family support, forgiveness, and personal determination. When I was in that cave, she told the audience, I thought my life had ended at 30. Today, at 43, I can say my life truly began when I found the courage to leave the cave. The cave represented my fear, my shame, my sense of failure. Leaving it meant accepting that we all make mistakes, that we all go through hardships, but that it's always possible to start over. The most important thing I learned is that we can't control what happens to us, but we can always control how we react to what happens. We can choose to be victims of circumstance or the protagonists of our own new beginning. The presentation was recorded and made available online, reaching thousands of views in the following months. Sarah began receiving messages from people all over the United States who were inspired by her story. Marcus, can you believe a woman from Seattle wrote to me saying my lecture helped her leave an abusive relationship? Sarah recounted, moved. I can believe it. Your story has a great power to inspire. Sometimes I get emotional thinking that my experience in the cave, which was so painful, is helping people I will never meet in person. With the success of the lecture, Sarah began receiving invitations from various parts of the country. She decided to accept some, always with Marcus's support and her children's understanding. Mom, you're becoming nationally known, observed Ryan, who was now at university studying psychology. It's strange, isn't it? I never imagined I'd leave Sedona to give lectures across the United States. But it's important, Mom. Your message needs to reach more people. Ryan, did you choose psychology because of our family history? Partly, yes. I want to help people overcome trauma, like Linda helped you and like you now help other women. Sarah felt proud to see that her experience had positively influenced even her son's career choice. 10 years after her return, Sarah was established as one of the leading figures in personal growth and social entrepreneurship in the Southwest. The Fresh Start Center had expanded and served women from several neighboring towns. Sarah, what's your take on these 10 years since you came back from the cave? Asked Marcus during one of those evening conversations they loved to have. My take is that every tear, every moment of fear, every hardship was worth it, because all of it brought me to where I am today. Do you regret anything? I regret having stayed in the cave for so long. I could have come back sooner and spent more time with my children when they were younger. But maybe you weren't ready before. That's true. Maybe the time in the cave was necessary for me to become strong inside. And what would you say to the Sarah of 10 years ago if you could meet her in that cave? Sarah thought for a few moments. I would tell her that the pain she's feeling is temporary, but the strength she'll develop to overcome it will be permanent. I'd say her children will forgive her, and that she'll find a love even better than the one she lost. And I'd say she'll turn her experience of isolation into a source of inspiration for hundreds of other women. Would she believe it? Probably not, Sarah laughed. But at least it would plant a seed of hope. By then, Jake had gotten married and given Sarah her first grandchild. Ryan was finishing his psychology degree and planning to specialize in family therapy. "Grandma Sarah," Marcus teased when they arrived from the hospital after the birth of the first grandchild. "Grandma Sarah," she repeated, moved. "I never thought I'd live to see my grandchildren." "Why?" "Because when I was in the cave, I thought I had lost forever the chance to be part of my children's important life milestones. And now you not only were part of Jake's wedding, but will be part of your grandson's growth." It's amazing how life goes in circles, isn't it? In the 12th year after her return, Sarah made a decision that surprised the family. She wanted to return to the cave where she had lived, to hold a ceremony of gratitude and closure. "Are you sure about this?" asked Marcus. "I am. I feel I need to go back there one last time, not as a refuge, but as a way to give thanks for everything that place represented in my life." "Can I go with you?" "Yes, you can. In fact, I want the whole family to go. Jake, Ryan, you, even the little grandson. I want that place to be redefined as a symbol of a fresh start, not of escape." The visit to the cave was planned as a small family ceremony. Sarah brought flowers, candles, and a letter she had written to her past self. "It's strange to be here again," she said when they arrived at the cave. "How do you feel?" asked Linda, who had also been invited to the ceremony. "I feel gratitude. Gratitude that this place protected me when I needed it most, and gratitude that I found the strength to leave it." Sarah entered the cave and saw that it was exactly as she had left it years before. Marcus had kept the place preserved, visiting occasionally to check that everything was okay. "Look at this," said Ryan, impressed. "This is where our mum lived all those years." "It's amazing how she managed to survive here alone," commented Jake. "Your mother is stronger than any of us imagines," said Marcus. Sarah lit the candles she had brought and read aloud the letter she had written. "Sarah of the past, I am here today, 12 years later, no longer as a woman running from pain, but as a woman who has learned to transform pain into wisdom. Thank you for resisting when all seemed lost. Thank you for surviving when death seemed easier. Thank you for keeping in your heart the hope that one day it would be possible to return home. Today I can say that every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of despair was worth it, because all of that brought us here. Now I will leave this letter here, as a symbol that the cycle is complete," she said, placing the letter on one of the shelves she had built in the cave. The family spent a few hours in the cave, talking about the past and planning the future. When they left, Sarah turned one last time to look at the place. "Goodbye, cave. Thank you for everything." "You don't plan to come back here again?" asked Marcus. "No, this was my farewell meeting. Now this cave can go back to being just a cave, no longer my hideout." On the way back to the city, Sarah felt lighter than ever. She had literally closed a chapter and was ready to fully live the future. In the years that followed, Sarah continued expanding her social work. The Fresh Start Center became a national reference, and she was invited to advise on the creation of similar centers in other regions of the country. "Marcus, can you believe that next week I'm going to Washington, D.C. to talk with people from the federal government about public policies for women in vulnerable situations?" she commented. "Yes, I believe it. You've become an authority on the subject. Sometimes I'm still surprised by the turns my life has taken." "Why are you surprised?" "Because a few years ago, I was just a broken woman hiding in a cave, and today, I'm a consultant for the federal government." "Sarah, you were always much more than a broken woman. You always had the potential to be all that you are today. The cave just gave you time to discover your inner strength." At 50, Sarah had become one of the country's leading voices on topics related to personal overcoming and family rebuilding. But what made her proudest were the small everyday moments. Family lunches, afternoons playing with the grandchildren, quiet evenings talking with Marcus. "Marcus, what was the happiest moment of your life?" she asked on one of those evenings. "The day I found you in the cave, not for what it represented as a reunion with you, but for what it represented as a possibility for the future." "How so?" "Because in that moment I understood that it was still possible to have a second chance in life, that the love I felt for you since youth could still be returned." "And what was your happiest moment?" asked Marcus. "The day I reunited with Jake in the clearing. It was when I understood that the love between mother and children is truly indestructible." "And today? How do you feel today?" "Complete. I feel my life has found its true purpose, not only as a mother and wife, but as someone who can help other people find their own light. Sarah, you know I love you very much, don't you?" "I know, and you know you were fundamental in helping me rebuild my life. You were fundamental in helping me understand what it is to truly love." They kissed with the same tenderness and passion of their first days of dating, proving that love built on a solid foundation only grows stronger with time. 15 years after leaving the cave, Sarah was honored by the city of Sedona as Citizen of the Year. The ceremony took place in the central square, the same place where she had spoken with David about the children's future. "It is an immense honor to receive this recognition from my hometown," she said in her acceptance speech. "But I want to share this tribute with all the women who had the courage to start over, with all the children who knew how to forgive, with all the partners who believed in the power of true love. Sedona saw me born, saw me grow, saw me disappear, and saw me be reborn. This city is a symbol that it is always possible to come home, no matter how far we wander. I dedicate this tribute especially to the women who are still hidden in their own caves, whether physical or emotional. I want you to know that it is possible to come out, it is possible to start over, it is possible to be happy again." The speech was applauded for several minutes. In the audience were Marcus, Jake, Ryan, the grandchildren, Linda, and even David and Jennifer, who still maintained a respectful relationship with Sarah. After the ceremony, the family gathered at Sarah and Marcus's house to celebrate. "Mom, we are proud of you," said Jake. How turned a story that could have been just tragic into an inspiring one. "Ryan, you're the psychologist. How do you analyze our mother's journey?" joked Marcus. "As a psychologist, I'd say it's an exemplary case of resilience and post-traumatic growth. As a son, I'd say it's simply amazing to have a mother who never gave up fighting for us and for herself." Sarah was moved by her son's words. "You know, none of this would have been possible without your forgiveness, right?" "Mom, you didn't need to be forgiven," said Jake. "You needed to be welcomed back." "It's true," Ryan agreed. "You never abandoned us out of malice. You left because you were suffering. And suffering, when properly processed, can turn into wisdom," added Marcus. "Exactly," said Linda. "Sarah is a living example that it's possible to turn trauma into growth." That night, after everyone had left, Sarah and Marcus went for a walk through the streets of Sedona, as they had regularly done for years. "Marcus, if you could go back in time, would you change anything?" asked Sarah. "I would. I would have had the courage to confess my feelings for you when we were young. Then maybe you would never have married David and wouldn't have gone through all that pain. But if that had happened, maybe our story would have been too ordinary. Maybe we wouldn't appreciate what we have today so much." "That's true. Perhaps the suffering was necessary for us to value our current happiness." "Marcus, did you know that today I look back and see that every difficulty prepared me for something good that was to come later?" "How so?" "David's betrayal prepared me to value your faithfulness. The loneliness of the cave prepared me to appreciate the company of family. Fear prepared me to discover my courage. Pain prepared me to help other people who are suffering. Sarah, you managed to find purpose even in the most difficult experiences. And do you know what my greatest discovery has been in all these years?" "What?" "That there is no whole person who hasn't been broken at some point. The difference is what we do with the pieces." "And what did you do with your pieces?" "I used them to build something new and better, like in a mosaic. The broken pieces, when well rearranged, can form something more beautiful than the original." Marcus stopped walking and kissed Sarah intensely. I love you, Sarah. I love your strength, your wisdom, your ability to turn pain into growth. I love you too, Marcus. I love your patience, your loyalty, your ability to believe in people even when they don't believe in themselves. They returned home hand in hand, grateful for the journey they had traveled together and eager for the future that still lay ahead. 20 years after leaving the cave, Sarah had become a grandmother to 4 grandchildren and a godmother to dozens of adopted daughters, the women who had passed through the Restart Center and kept in touch with her. Marcus, can you believe I received an invitation today to write my official biography? She shared, emotional. Biography? But you already wrote a book about your story. That one focused on the cave experience. This would be about my whole life, childhood, youth, marriage, motherhood, crisis, reconstruction, and social work. And do you want to write it? Yes, I do. I think it's time to tell the full story. With what goal? To show that everyone has the potential to start over, regardless of age or circumstances. The biography, titled Mosaic of a Life, From Cave to Purpose, was launched 2 years later and became a national bestseller. Sarah traveled to various cities across the country for book signings and lectures. Mom, you've become a famous writer, joked Ryan, who was already a licensed psychologist working with family therapy. Not a writer, my son, a storyteller. The difference is that my stories are all true. And what's the main message you want to convey? That no matter how deep you sink, it's always possible to find the strength to rise again, and that sometimes we need to hit rock bottom to propel our climb. At 60, Sarah decided to partially retire from her consulting work, but remained active at the Restart Center and in speaking engagements. Marcus, I think it's time to enjoy our personal life more, she said. How so? I want to travel with you, see new places, spend more time with the grandchildren, read more books, have more time for the two of us. And the Restart Center? It already has a very competent team. I can continue as a consultant, but I don't need to be on the front lines every day anymore. Sarah, are you sure you can slow down? You've always been so active. I'm sure I've learned that every phase of life has its purpose. The rebuilding phase is complete. Now it's the phase to enjoy the fruits we've harvested. In the following years, Sarah and Marcus traveled across the United States and abroad, always accompanied by one of their children or grandchildren. Sarah made a point of recording these trips in journals she intended to leave as an inheritance for her grandchildren. Grandma, why do you write so much? Asked one of the grandchildren during a trip. Because I want you all to always remember that our family went through difficult times, but we always overcame everything with love and unity. Do you still get sad when you remember the cave time? I don't get sad anymore. I feel grateful because it was there that I learned I am much stronger than I imagined. And would you go back there? I don't need to go back anymore. The cave fulfilled its role in my life. Now I live in the light. At 65, Sarah organized a big family party to celebrate her 35 years of marriage to Marcus. The party brought together not only the blood family, but also dozens of people who had been impacted by her work. Marcus, can you believe we've been married for so many years? She said during the party. I can, and I can say they were the best years of my life. Even with all the difficulties we faced? Especially because of the difficulties. They showed us that our love is indestructible. During the party, Sarah gave the last public speech of her life. Dear friends and family, I look at you today and see the people who helped me rebuild my life. Each one of you has a special part in my journey. My children, who taught me that maternal love is the most powerful in the world. Marcus, who taught me it's possible to love and be loved after 50. Linda, who taught me that healing isn't forgetting, but learning to live with it. And all the women who passed through the Restart Center, who taught me that my experience can be useful for other people. Today, at 65, I can say I am a fulfilled woman. Not because my life was perfect, but because I knew how to find beauty even in the imperfections. My final message is simple. Never give up on yourselves. It is always possible to start over. It is always possible to be happy. It is always possible to find purpose in life. And remember, sometimes our darkest cave is just the place where we are germinating for a brighter life. End of story. Now tell me, which part of the story touched you the most? Do you believe Sarah made the right decisions? Would you like to have the same courage as her to start over? Leave your sincere reflections on this journey of overcoming in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like if the story moved you, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories.